Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.
This is a processional honoring 4 special women, special to the city of New Orleans and special to the state of Louisiana. Hello everyone, I'm Rob Hinton.
And I'm Genevieve Stewart. Our program today will focus on these 4 women, better known as the New Orleans Four. As children, they were the first blacks to integrate the New Orleans public school system.
We'll be traveling back in time to November 14th, 1960, the day the girls integrated the public schools in New Orleans. We'll also share with you a recent celebration honoring the 4 women. That and more today on Folks.
Everybody's just folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just people all over the world. Folks to live, folks got to give, folks got to care, ooh, folks got to share. Our world is small, so very small. What touches one of all, ooh, touches us all. To stay alive, just to survive, folks got to be in harmony. Everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody's just folks, everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody's just folks.
Back in March, Louisiana Public Broadcasting presented a special program entitled With All Deliberate Speed. The program examined the issues, people, and processes involved in school desegregation here in Louisiana.
One of the school systems that the program focused on was New Orleans Public Schools, a school system first desegregated almost 23 years ago.
Them, what are we going to do?
Meet Ruby Bridges,
about these
Gail Etienne,
She
Tessie
knows
Prevost,
that
and
the-
Leona Tate.
at this
When these
moment,
women were 6 years old, they desegregated the public school system in New Orleans. On November 14th, 1960, 3 of the girls entered McDonogh 19. The 4th girl was sent to Frantz Elementary School. All of them were accompanied by U.S. Marshals. They encountered mobs of spitting, cursing, stone-throwing whites. Some people called the event the Second Battle of New Orleans. Jack Stewart was principal of McDonogh 19 at the time.
Nobody knew anything was going to happen, so it was just like any other day. The kids came to school, and school started. As the faculty got here, I told them, by the time 8:15 or so, the faculty lounge had chief of police and city attorney, federal marshals, federal attorneys, acting sergeant at arms of the state legislature. They were all having coffee there, just waiting for it to happen. And they brought the 3 little girls about 9:30, and then the community knew something was going on. By lunchtime, most of the other children were gone.
We were prepped, you know. They told us, like my mom and dad, they told us that not to be afraid, you know, that it was going to be different. They made us understand this. And I can remember the marshals coming to the house, picking us up. We were well guarded, okay. And riding to the school, it wasn't very far. And then just a whole crowd of people in the street yelling and hollering. What they were yelling, I don't remember. Okay, I can remember going into school. It was a crowded school with kids then, but we sat in the office for some time, you know, and then they escorted us to classes. But during the day, the rest of the kids, they left.
Ruby Bridges was the lone black girl who integrated Frantz Elementary School. Ruby, her mother, and U.S. Marshals were greeted that first day and days following by whites who lined the sidewalks carrying rebel flags. Desegregation in New Orleans made national headlines. After that first day, mothers of the New Orleans Four talked to the press with their backs to the television cameras so that they would not be recognized.
Do you feel it's a cause that you have to fight through to represent other Negroes?
I feel this way, that if this is going to be to pave the way for equal right for other people, then we're willing to make the sacrifice no matter what it is.
The rest of you feel pretty much the same way.
Yes, I do.
you tell us anything the girls said in their own words, any comments they made themselves about this?
Well, I'll tell you about my little girl. We do not question her. We have better sense than that. We don't question her about what happened in school. But if she opens up and want to talk, then she has a little dog at home, and she's more anxious to get home and play with her dog than she is to tell us anything about what happened. They took it, my little girl took it wonderful.
Well, what happened, say, after the first day?
Nothing.
Was she upset?
Not at all.
Does she understand what it's all about, fully?
I don't think she does. I think she's transferred from one school to another.
And what about the other children?
She's taking it fine, too.
Did any of them seem frightened at all?
No, she was very thrilled when she came home.
How about this? Are they still taking it all right after these last 3 days into this fourth day?
Yes, Mama. Fine.
Are you all determined for your children to stay in the school?
Yes.
Determined to stick to it?
Yes.
Rather than send their children to the two schools chosen for desegregation, many white parents opted for private and parochial schools.
I have 2 in school, 1 9 and 1 6.
Are you registering both of them here today?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I will have one going next year.
Do you think we're going to continue to have your children in this temporary?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
You wouldn't send them back to...
Oh, no.
Where are they, in McDonogh or Frantz?
McDonogh 19, and my little boy, he's in the room, Miss Myers' room with the 3 little niggas.
I see. And you took your boy out the first day?
Oh, I didn't send him Monday.
Oh, you didn't
Governor
send him at all?
Davis set a holiday, and I did abide by him. He is the governor of the state, and I did abide by him.
Are you worried about the education of your children?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Well, I was thinking in terms of this temporary school. Do you think they'll get good education in a temporary school?
Well, I don't know about a good education, but I think they will learn something much better than what I could teach them at home.
But you're prepared to keep them in this school if it is organized?
Well, if I see where they're making headways, definitely. Yes, definitely.
Well, what are your plans now? Are you going to send Maria to the school that your husband is helping organize?
Yes, I'm going to send her there, and I believe that it's going to work out 100% because he's been working all summer. And in fact, this week he's been working every night to promote the school and make it one of the best private schools area.
You're not worried about lack of money, perhaps, or the school standards not being up to the public school standards?
No, I believe that with everyone's cooperation, they'll make out pretty well.
What do you think will be the end of all this? Do you think things will be solved by next year, or what?
I believe that if they continue with these private schools, they'll have enough of them set up that everyone will be satisfied instead of sending their children in integrated schools.
In other words, you're not concerned now at this point about whether the school's open or closed?
I'm not worried anymore since this private school started.
When do you think Maria will be going to school?
Well, I believe in about a couple of 3 weeks the school will be started.
Maria, what have you been doing all this week?
Playing.
You had a lot of fun?
Yeah.
Well, what did you think about missing school?
I don't know.
Not only did Tessie, Gail, and Leona desegregate McDonogh 19, but they were the total student enrollment from November 1960 to June 1961. Ruby's white schoolmates at Frantz Elementary also had to be escorted. The whole ordeal created so much tension that it prompted this statement from the New Orleans police superintendent.
Although persons have a right to demonstrate peacefully on our streets, I have to take into consideration the fact that others who are opposed to the thinking of such demonstrators also have the right to freedom of movement and full protection of the law.
James Gabriel, a worker for the city of New Orleans, and his wife continued to take their daughter to Frantz Elementary after Ruby began attending, but they received ongoing threats and abuse from other white parents. Their apartment was stoned, and harassment on the job forced Mr. Gabriel to quit.
Why did you quit your job?
Oh, I'd say mostly pressure being put on a little at a time around the place there. The way they've been acting towards me, they won't have nothing to say to me. And my boss is sort of, doesn't want to say too much to me. So I tried to talk to my boss, and my boss said, look, he said, I don't want to have a damn thing to do with you. In plain English, I don't want to have a damn thing to do with you. So I told him, that's the way you feel about it. Well, you fire me right on the spot. You fire me right now. And he just said, well, go on, go to work. So I don't find a job soon. I just have to get out of the state. Because the way things are going right now, they're trying to make it hard for me. But like my wife and I talked about this way before, if this service should happen to us, that we knew what to expect. If it went this way and it looks like it's going this way, that nobody wants to have nothing to do with us. But as far as I'm concerned, it makes no difference to me one way or the other.
My faith in the people of New Orleans has always been that they're wonderful people, and it has never wavered. In fact, I have the proof through the mail. Many, many letters are from the people of New Orleans, and all the letters are letters of encouragement and admiration. I mean, they're all, well, I cried a couple of times.
The Gabriels moved to Rhode Island. The school board president at the time was Lloyd Rittner, and he says he knew when integration came, there was going to be some trouble.
Well, I knew when we integrated the schools, or when we said we were going to integrate the schools, that we would have trouble. But I never dreamed that we would have as much trouble as we had. I didn't believe that the feeling ran as deep as it did, and that the feeling ran throughout the entire community from the lowest socioeconomic level to the highest. This surprised me. I didn't know that the people would be so vindictive that they would actually ruin me in my business because I was keeping the schools open. But the feeling was very, very deep here, and it lasted for a long time. I'm not sure that it has changed inwardly as much as I would hope that it had. Certainly outwardly it has, maybe inwardly, but I'm not sure.
The days immediately after it happened were beautiful November days. It was warm and sunny, and the neutral ground, the people in the community gathered. None of the faculty, nor did I feel any threatened by them. We knew most of them. They felt frustrated. They didn't particularly like what was happening. They didn't know how to control it. The shouting and whatnot would occur when the youngsters were brought to school by the federal marshals, or when they were taken home in the evening by the federal marshals. Or with all due respect, whenever a TV camera showed up, but the rest of the time was more picnic-like than anything else.
We were trying to get the community to believe that it was better to keep the schools open, even though integrated, that the only other choice they had was to close the schools. They were misled. They were misled by the one board member that wasn't on this committee, and they were misled by a lot of the politicians in Baton Rouge that the state and the city could more or less take over the school system and give it to a private school system, all of the buildings, all of the lands, all of the teachers, and for $1, and that they could continue to operate the school system in Orleans Parish as it had been before, but now as a private school system. Well, we knew that that couldn't happen, and but the one school board member that felt that it could happen consistently said that the governor could throw his cloak of sovereignty over the edifice of education, whatever that means. But it was meant to let the people believe that the governor had the power to keep the schools open and segregated.
Despite all of the attention, at age 6, Ruby, Gail, Tessie, and Leona really didn't know what was going on at the time.
It just looked like it was Mardi Gras, so why we had to go during that time. Everybody else wasn't going, you know. But I did notice that everybody out there were white. Okay, I can remember that. You know, the only black people were our families or something like that, people behind us.
Jimmy Davis was governor. He and the state legislature tried to take control of the schools. Funds to pay teachers were impounded.
Our attorneys are now investigating with the attorneys for the bank. I believe that under this court order, we should be in a position to negotiate a loan with the banks.
You think, as far as the banks are concerned, that this will clear up the situation for them?
I couldn't speak for the banks. I hope it would.
The 2 white children attended Frantz school today as compared to 4 yesterday. Does this look bad for you?
No, I do not think that's significant at all when you consider the extremely difficult situation under which these youngsters are coming into the school. I think the fact that any of the white children are continuing to come is indeed good.
Do you see any lessening of the heckling that's going on for the white children?
Probably not, but I could pray that it would stop.
The state legislature also fired the school board president and its attorney. On the days following November 14th, 1960, the first day of school desegregation in New Orleans, white teenagers and adults marched on the school board office. And before they were dispersed by city police, several blacks were badly hurt and 2 were badly beaten. Genevieve, during that first year of desegregation, business and tourism in New Orleans declined. And it was only then that business leaders and the so-called socio-elite called for some kind of peace and order. One other note, I really have to admire the courage showed by those girls and their parents.
I certainly do too, Rob, because the faith and courage exhibited by the New Orleans Four and their parents has gone pretty much unnoticed. That is until recently, when the New Orleans Citizens Memorial Committee held a special ceremony honoring the 4 women. The ceremony began with a processional of the honorees. The occasion, of course, was to honor the 4 women, but some of the tribute went to their parents as well.
Those families were ordinary families. They worked for their living. They struggled to provide for their families just as the rest of us do. They had the same kind of daily concerns that all of us do. But when the time came for them to make a decision, they were able to make the kind of commitment that is needed to have this special kind of faith and the special kind of courage that's needed to put their lives, their daily lives on the line. These families suffered tremendous financial pressures, social pressures, and even more, and I think that those of us who are parents can really relate to this very, very deeply. They suffered the incredible fear that comes to any parent when they fear that serious harm might come to their children. They did this because they had a commitment and a belief that the American ideal of equality for all was and should be a very real thing, and they were willing to put themselves on the line for that commitment, and I want us to remember those families today.
The first person to honor the women was New Orleans Mayor Ernest Morial. He commented on the 4 women's contribution to racial equality.
You know, Bush versus the Orleans Parish School Board was filed long before Brown versus the Board of Education in 1952. But at the request of those within the Legal Defense Fund of the NAACP, and because of Brown versus the Board of Education and Bowling v. Sharp, we were requested to delay because the thinking was that those cases were better suited for the Supreme Court of the United States to determine that separate but equal was unconstitutional. And you know, the separate but equal doctrine, the separate call law, Plessy versus Ferguson, originated in Louisiana. So there are those who were leaders in New Orleans and Louisiana who would have liked to have seen Bush be the case to set aside Plessy versus Ferguson in a separate call law. But cooler heads prevailed in terms of dealing with a case and the architects of that litigation to make it possible for these young girls to be admitted to those 2 schools.
The keynote address was given by Dr. Clifton Johnson of the Amstead Research Center.
Those of you who were not born in 1960 cannot understand what the situation was like. You cannot imagine the fear, the hatred, and resistance that efforts at school desegregation generated. And we must remember that there was not the national commitment to civil rights that was to come later. Although the United States Supreme Court had ruled 6 years earlier, segregated public schools violated the Constitution, neither the national government nor the American public was yet committed to desegregation. The President had equivocated on the matter, and Congress had not given legislative support. The governor and legislature of Louisiana had encouraged resistance and tried every method they could think of to prevent desegregation. In 1960, only a handful of whites rallied to the cause. Not only were these children and their parents courageous, but they must have felt terribly lonely. We must ask ourselves why, against such odds, they decided to be first.
The New Orleans City Council has passed a resolution setting aside April 18th every year to recognize the extraordinary faith and courage exhibited by the 4 women and their parents.
They, as many of us, happen to serve as symbols of the hopes and the dreams of people who lived in this country for over 200 years. And it is fitting for us to recognize those symbols because they really embody the life of the slave who dreamed of being free, of the sharecropper who dreamed of owning their own farm, of many of the women who had to work as maids who dreamed of having education, and those who were not fortunate enough to succeed at all, to see the symbols reach and personify those dreams and those hopes.
As the ceremony ended, Honoree Tessie Prevost spoke on behalf of the 4 women.
As I stand here today, reflecting over the past, many of our desires for the educational process came into being, and it was only by God's grace that these accomplishments became a reality. As we appreciate the celebration, informing the people of the world of our struggle and the agony each of us went through, this is a celebration, in our opinions, which is long overdue. Realizing through the years how history can be forgotten by others, we would like to express our sincere thanks for the warmth and unity shown by the Citizens Memorial Committee for recognizing us and helping us to overcome the feeling of neglect. We would like to impress upon you that the special movement we made 23 years ago has benefited not only the children of New Orleans, but has made a tremendous impact on the people all over the world. The most rewarding and gratifying award we received was a kind expression of love, words of encouragement, and prayers which were bestowed upon us by our parents and the people in the community who supported us and urged us to continue our struggle. And because of their support, we were able to survive and are here today to commemorate this occasion. I would like to leave with you this thought, and I paraphrase from the late President Kennedy: ask not what racial equality can do for you, but rather ask what you can do to help establish racial equality. Thank you.
Following the ceremony, there was a reception for the New Orleans 4. It was there we had a chance to talk with 2 of the honorees. They shared with us their thoughts and their feelings about that historic day 23 years ago and the special day set aside to honor them.
You know, if I had it to do for my son, I don't think I would, not without asking certain questions, you know, like what he's going to, you know, get out of it. Is he going to benefit in any way? You know, I think I would think, you know, I would have to ask those questions first before I would do it, you know, like my mother did. But today is good. I think it's, well, it could be a good start. You know, that's the way I feel about it.
Today, I can't right out say that we looked forward to this, because in time, everyone just forgot. It seemed as if everyone forgot about it. So I guess we kind of forgot about it too, you know. It's a part of my life that maybe the good Lord just blanked the good, great deal of it out of my mind as to where I just didn't remember a lot of the hassles, or I remember a lot of confusion about, at that time, which we weren't alone. Ruby was by herself in school. It was 3 of us in school. So we weren't alone in school, but it was just the confusion. We didn't understand what was going on. Like she said, we didn't know if this was normal. This was the first day of school. And we didn't know if this was a normal thing to happen. Nobody else seemed to be in school. We thought it was like, it looked like Mardi Gras, And we were just wondering, what are we doing in school? And this is Mardi Gras. Everybody else is off, and we're in school. But I really felt real good today, the way the program turned out, the support that we had, not only then, because we had a lot of support then, our parents had a lot of support then, but even now that there are some people that didn't forget about us, And it really made me feel good that I was a part of something like this. I can look at the little kids today on program and all, and it just makes me feel good to know that I was a part of, of something that's important enough to be celebrated or to be acknowledged.
That's our program for this week, and we'd like to thank you for watching.
Next week on Folks, our program will focus on child abuse. Until next time, so long.
Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.